All right. It's another episode of Write Once, Read Many. This time I've
Hello,
got
hello.
David. Yeah. So vamp a bit, David. Vamp it.
Hey everyone, welcome to this wonderful hit program that, I've missed so much since I was last here. I'm glad you could all be here for those of you that are. Today we're going to be talking about chapters 14.7 and 14.8. Quite some bangers if you ask me.
They're good ones.
Mhm. Mhm.
All right. So as a reminder for the audience participation question this week, for 14.8, it was, when did you realize that it was not really Tattletale talking to Skitter on your first read?
Hmm. We all wonder.
Greg is here in the chat already, so hello, Greg.
Howdy, Greg.
And
Switch to live chat.
yeah, we gotta do that in case people are talking spicy.
We're talking smack. We need to address that quickly.
Exactly.
All right.
Yeah. So themes, we didn't write any down, but can we think of any on the spot?
I don't know. I think at least, especially in 14.7, a lot of something that keeps coming to mind is like, what do you want to call it? Not like battle awareness necessarily, but like how information influences the actions going on here. There definitely seems to be a lack of. Also, hi to Close 4x5.
Hello. Yeah, I mean I suppose that's true in 14.8 too, and I mean, because as we the audience know, there's going to be the agnosia thing, and it only gets like sort of worse and worse as that sets in. So
yeah. So yeah, I mean maybe there's one.
Here we go. Information or lack thereof.
Yep. One thing. Well, no, I guess this feels more. It's kind of along the same lines, and it's probably more of a character thing we can talk about a bit later. But Skitter's, kind of recognizing of limitations a little bit, or abiding by those limitations.
Vale says off and on today.
So all good. Glad you're here while you can. Yeah. I don't know. Anything you got in the way of a theme for this one?
No, I'm good. Nothing chambered.
All right.
Write down and you can just. You don't even.
Yeah, I'm
just go for it.
I'm just gonna dip right in. You pop in wherever it feels good.
Yeah.
All right, so starting with 14.7, Tattletale tells the rest of the gang that the 9 most likely went to one of 2 locations. Both are Endbringer shelters, one of which was the one where Skitter fought Leviathan with Armsmaster's Nano-Thorn Halberd. Skitter mentions that if they are going to check out those locations, she would very much prefer the library as opposed to the shelters, because she has some bad associations with that fight. She kind of goes on to talk about how she didn't really believe she made much of a positive impact given the onslaught Leviathan caused, and she was kind of questioning whether or not she had tried enough, especially with one of her former bullies in the room, Mr. Gladly. Generally, she's kind of been struggling with her own relationship to being heroic or even like proud of those accomplishments. She has a good quote here, sort of about her coming to a realization with what all the hero stuff kind of means in the end. And she says, it's like that dream of being a hero that I always had just kind of faded away in the face of reality. So clearly she's yeah it's not super tight, as you could imagine. Tattletale and Skitter move on to checking in with Gru post sort of his whole everything. who at this moment does not have much to say and doesn't really seem to know how he is. Basically, he's like, I think Tattletale asks, like, will you let us know if you're feeling all right? And he's like, once I know what that even means, yeah, sure. Yeah, so he's not doing perfect, but, given the situation, they're kind of willing to just move forward and check in when it seems necessary.
He's doing good enough.
He's doing good enough, all things considered. Good enough to be here. And also good enough to sort of keep making use of his new power up a little bit. He's testing the waters with that. Not in this moment, but in general.
Yeah.
Yeah. Next, we have Sun Dancer beginning to clear the flames around the bomb site, and the Undersiders begin hatching their plan of attack. Skitter opts for a simple plan, basically hit him hard with Sundancer, Ballistic, and her bugs. But Tattletale sort of counters with a classic, why not split the party maneuver? Noting that if the 9 slip past them, they'll basically get time to do some scheming of their own, with the Undersiders as their likely first target. So that seems like reason enough for them to sort of just run with it. And they saddle up on Dog and Bug and make their way, continuing to hash out the plan. Skitter sort of first suggests, which, yeah, she definitely seems to be putting herself in the fray a lot more with all of this, but her first suggestion is to take a scouting mission on Atlas, which, one, I think she's probably just trying to find any reason to go fly on a big bug. But two, I think she just wants to try to use her abilities in the most optimal and beneficial way. So she's basically planning to stay out of range on Atlas of anyone who could do significant damage, though Jack sort of poses the largest threat here. Tattletale likens him to a sniper far more than a typical slasher, citing his battlefield awareness and, of course, his stupid surgical striking long range.
Greg says, Dog and Bug riding Dog and Bug.
100% that. Do you want to jump in, or do you want me to keep just storming through?
Just storming through. I usually let whoever wrote the thingy just go for it.
Wow. Okay.
So I was just gonna go for it on the next chapter, which I wrote.
Great. Perfect.
With with jump-ins and in-betweensies.
Yeah. Don't hesitate to stop me.
I like where you're going with this. I don't want to break your flow. So when I think of something, when I see something, I'll say something. Oh, you know what I didn't say is the art. Now the art's starting.
Oh, the art. Ooh, let's everyone enjoy that. Enjoy those good arts.
Art start.
Wow. Art start. All right, I'll keep going over the art. Gru sort of pushes back on that plan. He doesn't necessarily seem to feel very comfortable with Skitter/Taylor running out on her own like that. But even Tattletale doesn't seem wholly convinced it's the right maneuver, but she's definitely willing to take the gamble and tell Skitter to get. And Skitter uses that opportunity to get a better feel for her control with Atlas. She definitely seems to be really sinking in and getting more comfortable with how different that connection is to her other bugs and how she can still utilize her power in a meaningful way. And she makes this point of flying erratically and under the cover of nearby buildings, kind of keeping in mind that Jack could be anywhere, before eventually landing on a rooftop, taking shelter in a shed leading to the building's interior. And then she starts to use these relay bugs to extend her range, so she can both sweep the area and check possible, avenues of travel that Jack and Bonesaw could have taken.
If Vale is here, it is now the time for art appreciation, when you can say any generic compliment that you want and not feel bad that you say the same, it looks really good every week, or whatever.
Here, I'll take a first stab at it.
It looks really good.
Wow. It's nice. I like it.
It's pretty lit.
It's really good. It's pretty lit. This one's fire.
Look at Legend.
Actually, this one is pretty much fucking fire, though. Just look at him go. Look at him up there. Yeah. What's he doing up there?
Yeah. Fine.
No, great work, excellent art.
I
What was
think the
that?
second art may surprise you.
Oh, I still have not
And
seen it.
nobody will need to complain to me that I have not switched the art, for I know when to change the art.
Okay, but what's the point of time when I can tell you that maybe you didn't switch the art?
If we finish the chapter and I forgot to switch the art.
Okay, cool. Have fun. 2 + 4 × 5. Have a nice day
Bye.
at work. All right. Before Skitter can head back to the Undersigners, she detects an explosion of dust and rock fragments a few blocks away. She's able to identify Siberian holding the truck, and the legend is flying above. She attempts to distract Siberian with some of her bugs, but admits it's a pretty futile gesture and moves a bit closer to the ongoing battle. Legend's strategy seems to be an attempt to block her path, the Siberian's path, and guide her movement to prevent her from escaping, rather than necessarily just taking her down with like direct force. It's a lot of like shooting the ground underneath her feet and collapsing things around her and that sort of a thing.
Using her
Battle
power
damage.
like we saw during like the Leviathan fight or whatever. Or wait.
Yeah.
What am I saying here?
Or you mean Legend's power?
Legend. Oh yeah. Sorry, I was thinking of a different moment for a second. I was thinking of the sorry, I'm all twisted.
All bonked up.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's a lot of just trying to like inhibit the Siberians' movement and guiding them in any way they can.
Yeah, I was thinking of Vista in the next chapter for some reason. I have no idea why. I just heard crash, and then I was like, oh yes, the building crash.
Yes, of course. So Skitter sees this as like a strategic battle. They're definitely playing the slow game to wear the Siberian down, or that's Legend's intention there. And Legend has the upper hand if what Cherish said about the Siberian's master was true, and that they were not like a very physically capable person. Though Skitter was still a bit perplexed as to why they chose to fight somewhere that could easily provide cover for the Siberian, and also, it's like a city block, like there are buildings being damaged, and yeah, it's generally not what you would hope a battlefield to look like.
Mm-hmm.
With this in mind, she kind of remains at a distance, using her bugs to attack Siberian as much as possible, but also to penetrate the truck that Siberian is holding. About 90% of those bugs get super murdered when Siberian falls into a trench that Legend sort of helped to create, and then levied a wave of laser blasts. So Taylor's kind of awareness right there depletes a bit, but some of the bugs still make it into the truck. She notes, which I thought was interesting, and I'm just going to pause on it because I don't think it really matters that much, but she notes that the bugs are smelling like some kind of rotting or food source inside of the truck, though it doesn't really visually note what that would have been. So I was just kind of like, what the fuck is in this truck?
Yeah, I don't know.
But yeah,
I never really got like when did he leave the truck? Was it before Legend engaged Siberian? Like, this is something where I never really understood quite the timeline. Not to say that it's just like there's so much shit going on that I have no idea like when the maneuver to fool them would have began.
Right. I mean, yeah, I guess maybe sometime around the first. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question, because I would think maybe in the chaos of that like first blast, but I doubt that now that I'm thinking about it. I don't know. And the bigger bummer there is, the truck's empty. There is no Siberian, or no Siberian's master, I should say. So with that, Skitter quickly uses the bugs to alert Legend to the subterfuge, leaving a message that reads, "Truck empty, Siberian bluff." She immediately kind of calls Tattletale and telling her what she saw. And Tattletale and the rest are kind of outside a sealed metal door, which is welded shut from the outside. And there's a possibility of one of Bones. Yeah, sorry, let me pause. They're all a little bit perplexed as to like, oh, are they behind this metal door? How did they get in there if it's welded from the outside? Um, which Tattletale kind of notes like, oh, well, Bonesaw does have these spooky metal spiders who hypothetically could have done that, although the possibility is low. So but
If
in
she
either
had
case,
gone
they're in the
with
same.
them, if she had gone with them and they had gone to that one and not had the 9, then she wouldn't have even been there to like help Legend,
Yeah, absolutely that actually. Which I suppose I don't think in whatever their scheme was, it didn't really seem like they were banking on cooperation from anyone in particular. Um,
But it would have
so I
just
don't know.
meant that Legend was by himself there and just fought Siberian
Yeah,
and didn't even engage them. Which, like,
right.
again, it's kind of all nullified by Bonesaw doing the thing. But I think splitting up
Yeah,
was good,
the,
even
the
though it was
right call.
risky.
Yeah,
Even though it were
always risky.
riskier.
Ooh. Um, and yeah, I mean it's interesting because a character or someone with the role of Taylor in terms of like battle awareness and sort of a tactician in a lot of ways, it definitely makes sense to have her do a scouting mission. Honestly, I want her to ride Atlas into the sunset for all of time and just always be rocking it up there.
Yeah.
But yeah, in any case, back at the welded door, Sundancer is already kind of gearing up to burn through it. Um, and kind of while that's happening, Skitter and Tattletale sort of use one another as a sounding board a little bit just to talk through what feels a little bit weird during this fight. Specifically, something seems kind of amiss about this Legend versus Siberian brawl. Um, kind of about the things I already mentioned, like why this particular battlefield, why is Legend taking this kind of strategy, like what's his end game? And obviously, given the news with the empty truck, they're very much wondering like where the shit is Siberian's real body. And as far as we can tell, Legend hasn't reacted at all to Skitter's message. So what
I think
what
that
is his game?
I think he's just like pretending to still think um, that he's in the truck so that Siberian won't just appear somewhere else.
Right. Yeah, because the moment you kind of show your hand with something like that, Siberian could easily just duck out if they wanted to. Or at least it kind of feels that way. I suppose that's what Legend's whole thing is preventing. It's like, no, you're going to stay here where I can monitor the situation. We're not going to let you run loose where we can't find you.
Yeah, and I mean
Uh,
it's a bit ineffectual on both of their sides, so it just takes the biggest like power source off the table for both of them. And I mean the
yeah,
concern is
yeah,
that she grabs Jack and Bonesaw and then just she can just carry those two always, until the battle's
right.
over or whatever.
Yeah, which, no, thank you. Yeah, and so the rest of the gang kind of makes their way through that sealed door after Sundancer successfully blows a hole into it. And guess what? It's also empty. Skitter asks about, with that, Skitter's kind of looking down at the library from the sky and asks Tattletale how to get into the vault. But without kind of direct eyes on the control panel, Tattletale basically can't do much. The only other option would be like a direct order from the PRT headquarters. So obviously that's kind of off the table. Um, well, I guess maybe it wouldn't be in this situation, but or in these circumstances, but it definitely seems like a non-viable option.
Right.
Um, Tattletale asks Skitter if she wants to kind of wait for her arrival or just go the brute force route. And given that Skitter does not have much brute force to throw around, uh, Tattletale kind of chimes in like, "Oh, but Legend does," and says that they're on their way. And in the meantime, while they are en route after the call, Skitter sends another message to Legend that they found the 9 and points to the shelter with a big, large arrow. Which I love that she does that because there's just an element that feels really cartoony about that to me.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And I mean it becomes kind of her shtick for a while. Like she definitely
yep.
does that in all the big fights.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Which you're like, yeah, I get. Okay, good. I'm glad. I'm glad these people can read. Um, where was I? Where was I? Oh yeah, and so this time after the message, you definitely see Legend's attention like actually shift a little bit. He continues directly assaulting Siberian, but he starts moving toward the library a little bit.
Mhm.
Yeah. Let's see. Siberian, with noticing this, Siberian picks up speed and leaps toward Legend, hurling the entire truck that she had been carrying, which Legend quickly obliterates, and he heads straight for the library vault. They describe his power really cool in this moment, but he basically drills through the vault door, making a hole with like a clockwise stream of beams. Um, Notes it's very like a very clean cut. Um,
And like
and
the
once he
way
does,
he can do it, he can bend lasers at like 90-degree or more angles, like at any angle
mhm,
essentially, and just so he like zings them around all the corners when he's launching them in there. It's pretty sick.
it's super rad. Yeah, you can kind of watch them or not watch them. He
Your
describes them
mind
like
can watch
bending.
them.
Your mind can watch them bending and shifting as they move, and it's very neat. Yeah, so what oh yeah, after he shoots into the vault door, it sort of topples over, and then he sends hundreds more beams all shooting from his body, the majority of which are all headed into the vault, but there's a large spray, like 25% ish, that shoot off just into whatever direction, and even a few of them hitting Skitter. They don't seem to be particularly powerful beams isolated, which is why I imagine he's using hundreds of them.
I
Uh,
also think what's happening here too is like he probably has some weird sensory aspect because we never see like he has a chapter, but we don't see a fight from his perspective. I think that maybe
mm.
he can like feel, oh, I poked into something with that. I don't know.
Oh yeah, oh, like he can sort of sense the impact of his lasers.
Yeah, I
You
think
think?
that that makes sense to me. Maybe not, but because like he can feel them to direct them, right? Because he's directing them around
Right.
corners or whatever. So like, oh, I'm
Yeah. Okay, I
poking
see
into
your
something
point.
I found. Like, oh, this flyer is sneaking up on me while I'm trying to do this attack.
Right, because yeah, I guess if your whole thing is control, like yeah, being able to manipulate it once you've emitted it, then that
Well,
implies
because
that
like,
you it.
what if Siberian just jumps him while he's doing this? You know what I mean? That's what I was
Definitely.
thinking. Like, if she just springs at him from behind, if he's stationary, he'd be totally fucked.
Right.
So
So
this is
yeah, good to
smart.
have some cover in other areas. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. Wow.
See, I think
Quite the
that Taylor
tactician.
is in like a position where she can't think of quite why he does these things, but like we have the element of time on our side to be like, maybe it's this shit.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And yeah, Legend's attention is pulled away by Siberian's approach, so he sort of stops doing this mega beam, uh, whatever attack. And Skitter uses the pause to investigate the shelter with her bugs. She clocks about 20 figures in there, and then which she refers to as people. And then she clocks three more, which can only be categorized as monsters. Clearly, they're members of the Nine. I think specifically, she sees Bonesaw, Jack, and one other figure, which she doesn't immediately identify.
Nah, she's just like a jerk. She just hates those three people.
Yeah, which I mean, I get it. I do. I can see why.
It's not even
I
the
don't know. They're
nine.
they're okay.
She's just like,
They
I
have
gotta
their
tear these people apart.
yeah. Fuck these people. So once she kind of identifies those people, she sends another message to Legend. He's too preoccupied to see it, so she follows up with another attempt, and he locks eyes with her, provides a nod and confirmation. Um, which I kind of thought from Taylor's perspective in that moment would be a pretty, like, I bet she feels pretty important in that moment, being like, oh wow, look at little Mr. Bigwig over there. taking my instructions and all that.
She's like, I don't care
Uh,
about the celebrities, but I mean, did you see that time when like Legend nodded at me? That was
He looked right into my eyes and he nodded, like he knew what I was saying.
he knew that like I was cool.
And she was pretty cool in that moment, I'd say.
Mhm.
I would have felt pretty good about it. But yeah, so she goes on preparing her bugs for battle, readying the capsaicin bugs and the silk threads for later use, and just kind of immediately sends in the first wave into the vault aimed at the 9. And Jack and one other seem to be affected, but definitely not Bonesaw. Skitter sends in the bugs with sort of a viciousness that she doesn't typically employ. Kind of the sort of attack that she would reserve for like an Endbringer or whoever. Basically, she just starts burying them in all the different bugs and kind of aims for them to like literally rip apart their flesh in a very specific way, like
It's
eating,
a
tearing,
cute bug
spitting
pile.
acid. It's not. It's a bug pile, that's for sure. And it's a lot of them. Yeah, I don't know. It describes it pretty gruesomely. I would be pretty upset with that kind of attack. And then kind of while
Gruesomely.
all of that's and yeah, even during all of that like biting and gnawing and grossness, you can she notices Bonesaw continuing to sort of like move about. And with that uses the threaded bugs, the bug threads, spider threads, to attempt to bind both Jack and Bonesaw. Bonesaw sort of stitching her fingers together, and Jack, I think, trying to pin his arms to his body. Although with Jack's powers, what with the slashing and all, doesn't do a whole lot there. He's able
What
to
with Jack's
sort of
slashing?
Yep. What with Jack's slash? And Taylor kind of thinks like, oh no, Biggie, the bugs are still eating their flesh. It'll be totally cool. I have a plan. And so at this time, Bonesaw, I guess, begins emitting this kooky old bug killing smoke.
Damn it! Again.
We hate that, and it kill those bugs pretty dang good. So what Skitter, I thought this plan was very kind of like adorable in a way. Skitter sends like a relay of bugs, each carrying tissues, and lights one at her to carry to the next to light it, and so on and so forth until one of the bugs carrying a fly carrying a flaming tissue makes its way into the smoke riddled vault and immediately dies. But her hope there was that the smoke that she's emitting would be flammable. But unfortunately,
Mannequin Explosion Part 2, but it doesn't work.
Yeah, I think it doesn't work this time. So clearly, these guys are learning their lessons. But Taylor kind of takes it on the chin and just opts to back down, having tried what she sees as she reasonably could in this situation. And this is kind of what I was talking about when she is exercising a little more restraint and sort of recognizing her limitations. I think without the ready backup of everyone, she's not foolish enough to try to insert herself directly into the situation. Which good, because she would super die.
Yeah. Probably.
Yeah. Almost. Yeah. Probably. I don't know. The more you read about like Bonesaw specifically, like I don't want to be anywhere fucking near that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Legend, continuing his attack, receives a communication and dives straight for the shelter with the Siberian in tow. He makes his way, attempting to save a civilian, but is quickly berated by the Siberian. Which, yeah, it sounds, from what I understood, he dives in there, grabs someone who's just kind of like idly standing there while all this shit's happening, which it kind of goes into what they were up to, but is quickly berated by the Siberian. He ends up shooting a bunch more lasers and shoots through the roof, which here we are at the art moment, through the roof into the sky, and he tilts his head back down towards the library and just sends even more lasers down into it. And kind of seeing all of this happen, Skitter guides Atlas upward, calls Tattletale with a warning to take cover. And in this moment, yet another stealth bomber flies overhead, drops another smaller payload, emitting a devastating yellow-green smoke, which visually, this sounds pretty bonkers, but it's like being pulled in by this sort of spiraling vortex. So the smoke is emitting, but being drawn inward at the same time. Which basically is turning anyone it touches into fucking dust. And that dust sort of creates this chain reaction, which turns the dust it touches, or the things it touches, into more dust, and so on and so forth. But it's all sort of pulled in by this kooky vortex that's able to prevent it from spiraling into like this endless cycle.
And they didn't know
the
that
scene
would
is-
happen. They just dropped a random payload, and they just happened to get a response that didn't blow them all up. It pulled the thing in, luckily.
Yeah, and that's kind of part of what I was wondering. I was like, how much of that is planned? Because yeah, that sounds like visually and theoretically a very, very interesting.
Well, like I think they even say at one point that they can't like fully identify what the different devices do. They just know
Right.
that they're, well, it's from her, so
Yeah, because it's all of Bakuda's old bombs and stuff. So yeah, it was just a winning combo there. Let's see. The scene was pretty much otherwise total chaos anyway, because yeah, it's all these different things. And in one area, you have time being slowed, and another, pavements being heated so hot it turns into liquid. Buildings are being annihilated, and the range of that effect kind of travels down the block, sweeping through about 3 blocks wide of an area, sort of into where the previous bomb site had been.
also
And kind of while all that. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, the thing that gets Crawler is something that was actually set up multiple times. Of like, oh, the guy's arm turned to crystal or whatever, like in the Bakuda bombings at the start of the book.
Yeah.
So.
Well, yeah, and I kind of gloss over that too. Here, I'll get to more on that in just a moment.
Yeah.
Skitter approaches. So yeah, basically amidst all of this chaos, Skitter is up in the air with Legend and sort of approaches him with a placating gesture, basically being like, "Hey, I'm not here to mess with you." And he basically is like, "Yeah, you didn't always do a great job, but you did good, kid." And then he gets,
thank you, little boy. I'm a girl, actually. Thank you, Bug.
Thank you, Bug. But yeah, so then he gets another update from his team. It seems that Crawler and Mannequin were caught in the blast thanks to the work of Clock Blocker. Though, as you were sort of noting, Crawler was pretty into it. I kind of glossed over it in my notes, but it sort of touches on how Piggo had specifically instructed Weld to tell Crawler what their plan was, who wanted to be there because
he told him at the last minute so he'd run back into the bomb site.
Yep. So he could feel some of that good damage, and after Clock Blocker kind of traps him in there, he literally cuts his body in half to get through the immovable object or whatever it is. So that guy's wild. He's got some stuff going on.
I got a question. Do you think that instantly turning to a crystalline substance is painful? Because I think that it's not, because it's too fast. So he doesn't even get what he wants.
Yeah, I guess if it's instant.
Got Piggo tricked you.
Yeah.
You didn't even get what you wanted.
Yeah, now that you're saying it, probably not feeling much of anything in that situation.
Boom.
Boom. Got. And yeah, so those blasts continue, and Legend confirms that the civilians inside the vault were now dead, though I think he perceives this as a bit of a mercy because they had been more or less zombified and puppeted, became puppets via Bonesaw's spiders, which at this stage
Well,
I
it's
don't think
like
would make
another.
sense.
It's another like classic moment where it's like, I think that Bonesaw's like the worst piece of shit. Like she
Yep.
has like the things that it's like, I turn you into my like evil minions to murder people, and also you get torture murdered no matter what happens. Like,
Yeah, that. It's a big old lose on that one.
yeah.
Not super ideal. So I mean, I think I don't know. I probably would have done the same thing. Um, or I don't know. It's hard to say because with anyone affected by Bonesaw's stuff, typically the only one who can undo that stuff is Bonesaw. So it's just one of those. Yeah,
I can see
and
why
during
he
all
did it in the heat of the moment.
moment,
He needed to blast him.
yep. Skitter takes kind of a moment during this to wonder aloud with Legend if Brockton Bay is even capable of coming back from all this destruction and being the city he once was. And Legend's like, I don't know. You would know better than I do. But
I don't know.
I don't know. You tell me, I guess.
I
And
was
I'm not really interested
semi-convinced.
in the answer.
I was semi-convinced the reason he was just like blowing up buildings downtown was because he's like, no one's gonna come back here.
The city's already dead. I don't know what they're fighting for, honestly, but
Well, no,
he's
he's
really
very.
selling.
He thinks that killing the Siberian is very worth his time, but buildings do not matter, which I
No.
basically agree with.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And during all of this pontification or what have you, the moment is sort of interrupted by an escaping Siberian, Jack and Bonesaw, along with some
Damn it.
fourth mystery fellow.
They're always escaping.
They're always escaping every time. And who even is this guy? But upon further inspection, Legend is able to identify the man as a known scholar, based on I believe it's the hand tattoos he sees.
Mm-hmm.
And while they're sort of looking down on that scene, Jack looks up towards them, and immediately Legend fires right at them. They dodge, and Skitter offers support by sending the bugs in to attack them as they dodge. Legend gets another communication that backup from their side is coming just as Skitter detects the Undersiders and the Travelers heading their way. And we wrap up the chapter with Legend telling Skitter to call them off, basically because with the table sort of turned now, what appears to be in their favor. Like, it definitely seems like the heroes / Undersiders and Travelers are winning the fight, but they have they've broken enough of Jack's, in quotes, rules, and sort of tipped things in their favor a little bit too much, that they're very much expecting whatever Bonesaw's punishment is to very soon follow. So basically, it's a stay frosty kind of moment.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the end of the chapter.
Oh
That's
my
what
god,
happens.
that's what happened.
That's 14.7 for you.
Yep.
Um,
As a slight intermission, so that we're not backloading it, I wanted to say that I was talking to Scarlett, and we've heard the first version of the next song David has, and I've heard the second version also, but it was like only a few minutes before we started recording, so I did not send it to David. So,
based on first impressions of the first draft, loved it. Absolutely great. Excellent tone, good vibes.
mm-hmm.
Very cool.
Yeah. But yeah, back to this chapter and chapter thoughts.
Yeah, what did you think? How did you feel about that chapter?
I remember thinking it was like weird that like Legend knew who the Siberian's creator was. I was like, what?
Mm-hmm.
which will obviously, like, there will be more on that later. But uh I don't know. It's a good enough chapter, but it kind of doesn't hit any of my, like, this one's crazy or anything, things in my mind.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
there's no, like, super standout features, I guess.
yeah.
Except
I
I
mean, there's
guess
a
the second bombing. I like the I guess that's the standout feature, is the Bakuda bombing.
yeah, and I think like it like you said, it's like it's a ton going on. Very little of it feels so monumental, given the everything of it all to really stand out. I'd say that's cool. With Legends stuff, I think all of the moments he wasn't fighting were a little more interesting, because the moments he was fighting felt, you're like, yeah, this is what Legend would do, I guess. Shooting lasers and flying around, okay.
Yeah.
But there's just not a lot of like variety. That's why I like the moment where he blasts the hole into the vault door. I think the way they described the power was pretty neat.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and but yeah, like the our art moment of him bursting from the roof of the library. I was like, you gotta every flying character needs at least one burst through the roof moment.
And we'll get to
So
see at
he
least one
definitely,
other classic burst through the roof moment in this story.
yeah. Oh yeah, huh.
Just right through the
Huh.
roof.
Right through the roof, straight to the heavens. Yeah, and like I think at the top of this chapter, you're sort of like this is a transition moment for sure. This a transition chapter, it feels like, just because like at the beginning of the chapter you're sort of reminded like, yeah, these guys definitely have some other shit going on, and they're still, other moments are still on their mind, and there's some drama to deal with and all that stuff. But they're kind of like, it's do or die, here we gotta go. So yeah, a good chapter. I think it gets us where we need to go. Um, nothing too wacky and wild about it. It was cool, and yeah, it leaves some questions regarding Legend and such. Um, Greg says, this really shows you who is going to make it in the parahumans world. Legend bursts up, Glory Girl bursts down.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, Glory Girl.
Sorry. Um,
Should have flown upward.
Should have flown upward, against the gravity. Yeah, that's I think that's all I got on this one. Had a good time with it. Could have had a great time.
Yeah. Okay. So I will read about let's see here. Um I had written the name of Siberian's creator. And now I've expunged it. Boom.
Oh.
Expunged. Because somehow I had thought they said it in 14.7, and I was like, oh, they actually
Yeah, I kept
didn't.
convincing myself it was knowledge at that point, and I had to kind of dial it back.
Yeah, and I just dialed it back. So, starting at 14.8, Skitter reaches her group and lets Tattletale know the heroes are saying Crawler and Mannequin are dead. Tattletale won't believe it till she sees it, but she does know they used Bakuda's remaining arsenal to carry out the bombing. The other members of the Nine are on the run. Skitter, sorry, the dog started scratching at the door. Dog. So, let's see here. Skitter thinks there's a chance Siberian's creator will die from what she's already done to him, like all the Black Widows and, the business.
All
If
that business.
if Bonesaw doesn't counteract it soon. And so she's hoping that Legend can keep them busy for long enough for, Bonesaw to not heal him, for him to die.
Yeah.
So Skitter tells the others Legend had her evacuate in case Bonesaw uses the bioweapon that they've been keeping in reserve. That they had... I mean, initially they just put it in the water supply to keep them in the, the heroes in town for the trials, but then it was to enforce the rules of the game.
Yeah.
It kind of shows how they multi-purpose things, and like the game was never like that much of a hindrance on them. It was already basically what they were gonna do.
Yeah, pretty much that.
Yeah.
Gamifying it just makes it, I don't know, more interesting for them.
The dog is going crazy in the background, like really going ballistic, trying to.
They want to be part of the stream. Want to talk about some worms.
Well, I think
dogs love those.
What's happening is that she's trying to get the blanket into just the right configuration, but she's really little, so it's taking tons of effort. And she's finally settled. Anyway, okay. Sorry, it was like really distracting. So as I sang, Skitter. So. Gru says that they'll be back up for the heroes if the heroes lose, and then the group starts discussing what Bonesaw's weapon might be. Tattletale insists that they think of Bonesaw like an artist, that she'll want to make something that catches them off guard and really scares them. Sundancer is clearly scared of everything, and Regent points out that she can keep Leviathan at bay. Then Sundancer reminds us that she got shreked in that fight and is only able to walk around because of Amy healing her after the battle. Giving us a nice little reminder this chapter of an important character who can perhaps be useful against the bioweapon. Perhaps.
Perhaps.
And Tattletale says that she thinks whatever happens will be aimed at scaring the capes specifically. Target the strongest and bring them low. Trickster points out that Bonesaw knows how to disable powers, but Tattletale says that if that was the countermeasure, then she wouldn't have revealed it earlier. And additionally, she doesn't think that, because it doesn't fully work on Skitter, doesn't think they'd be as assured as they are. So she reminds them not to think of her as a scientist, but as a performer. And then in the distance, we hear a skyscraper tip over and crash to the ground with more laser fire. It's unclear if this is just before or just after Bonesaw sets off the weapon. But there's a little team banter. We get Aisha, Brian, Alec, Trickster all talking. And then Wildbow's really getting good at the banter by this point in the book. And it was a little rusty, a little clunky at the start, but I think it's very good.
Yeah,
now.
It definitely feels a lot more naturalistic with the characters a bit more well defined.
Mm-hmm. And then we're back to Tattletale using the info that they know to figure out what it'll be. Gru tells Tattletale she's getting tunnel vision, and she realizes that she's not going to be able to get enough info to be useful here, so they start talking about what they can actually do. Taylor says they should find Amy. Typical teenagers, thinking about romance at a time like this, but she justifies that Amy will be able to help them counteract Bonesaw's plan. Sure.
You can always justify it,
yeah. Tattletale is in the process of figuring out where Amy went when they're interrupted by a change in the water. Clearly the mysterious threat they've been trying to anticipate. The water in the flooded streets is turning crimson, and a mist is rising out of it. The shallows look like pools of blood. It's like...
Pretty yucky and gross.
No. I was joking that we'd need to drink up the pools.
Right.
Yeah. It's a vampire's dream. So Gru yells to run, and Skitter gets on Atlas, flying upwards as the others mount back on the dogs. Tattletale says that it's spreading this fast because Bonesaw set it up before, and it only needed the catalyst to go off. The two dogs, Atlas and Shatterbird, carry our protagonist group away, but it's just not fast enough. Sundancer uses her son to try and slow down the progress of the change by burning off the water between them and the blood water. But even the steam is carrying the effect forward, and cutting off water from one direction doesn't work because they end up being outpaced and outflanked, and the water like spokes down the cross streets and gets them. So they try and go up. They have the dogs leap and they climb, but no matter how high they get, the crimson mist continues to rise toward them. Shatterbird and Sirius make good progress, carrying Regent, Gru, Imp, Bitch, and Ballistic, but Bentley isn't able to jump as high and climbs the building slower than the mist rises. He's dog clawing up.
He's doing his best.
He's doing his best. So Skitter stays behind with Bentley's group, trying to provide them cover by tightly flying the bugs together between them and the vapor, but it's not doing much. Once on the rooftop, Tattletale, Trickster, and Sundancer hop off Bentley. Skitter tries to provide a spot for Trickster with a swarm clone to swap somebody. But it's taking too long, so she gets Atlas in place with the others so that she can swap down and ride Atlas back up. And so Tattletale and Sundancer are swapped up for the Swarm Clone and Skitter, and then she hops on Atlas. Trickster alone is like light enough for Bentley to jump, and then he does jump up with them, so they're at one higher rooftop, but it doesn't really matter. The mist is still rising. They're not high enough. And Tattletale, she calls it a miasma, so that's the name that sticks from this point. And I guess that Bonesaw is Naraku in these chapters with all this miasma. Anyway, Tattletale says it's not going to stop rising, so there's not much point going to a higher roof. She doesn't think that this is poison, but she doesn't know what it does either. So Skitter finds the other group with her bugs. Regent is using Shatterbird's power to try and make a glass dome around them. And I had totally forgotten about this scene until this reread, but it's like pretty cool that he's making like a crazy dome and flying above them. And then she's trying to reinforce it by plugging up the holes with bugs, but she knows that it is useless. Because her bug net did not stop it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, it is cool seeing, and we were kind of talking about this before, but the way someone might use someone else's power, like with Shatterbird, all we know really is how destructive it can be prior to this, or at least for the most part, that seems to be the focus of it as a destructive force. But seeing how it can be used in defensive ways and all that kind of a thing, like I like getting to witness other people's powers through Regent, despite his duplicitous methods.
Yeah, and we'll see him make... And it's funny, because Skitter made a bug glass barrier in Arc 10 to guard against containment foam, and is now making a bug glass barrier with his assistants now. And later, in a different chapter, after all the heat dies down, then Shatterbird's power will be used yet again to make a glass barrier like this to try and push away something in the air. It's
so good.
He's learning.
It also makes me think, what if now that we have another team member who can sort of borrow power in a way, it would be, just for funsies, interesting to see what Regent controlling Gru to borrow someone else's power might amalgamate as, like, the ultimate power daisy chain.
Yeah, but Gru would never let him. It would have to be that Gru uses.
Never happen. Yeah.
Gru use Regent's power on somebody. Like, I could see the daisy chain happening that direction, but then he couldn't control them. You know what I mean? He could just do probably the thing that you think Regent's power is at the start of the story.
Right. Just those small little flicks and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so Tattletale more or less says that Skitter needs to leave them behind, take the gun and the bugs, and try to confront the 9 when they have their guard down. And now is when they're most likely to not be ready for her. All 3 remaining members of the 9 are priority targets. The Projector of Siberian, Bonesaw, one of the worst capes to lose to, and Jack, who, as far as Dinah knows, is gonna blow up the whole world or whatever. So, And then Skitter refuses, and she says that she needs to stay to keep trying to get them to higher ground with Trickster. But then Tattletale and Trickster pretend to go along with her plan. When she gets up to the higher rooftop, Trickster swaps Sundancer for a swarm clone, and then Skitter realizes that they've given up trying to go upward and want her to do what Tattletale had been saying before and, find Amy to cure all the people from Bonesaw's weapon and then confront the 9. You gotta do everything yourself, Taylor. That's what Tattletale's saying.
It's always been you, Taylor.
Yeah.
You have to.
I know we couldn't win as a full team, but you have to beat them by yourself.
Despite our earlier protesting to this very idea.
Yeah. Initially, Sundancer says that she'll use her power to try and protect herself from the miasma, but then she realizes partway through saying it that it's pointless because it won't be gone soon enough and she'll need more air. Then she cuts to saying what she's really thinking about, that she's worried about being alone, and that's what she's most scared about. So she drops a whole bunch of info on Skitter because she clearly thinks that this is the end, and we don't learn all that much, but there's lots of juicy threads to pull on later. So Mars, who we know she's called Mars because of Trickster calling her that in a previous chapter, had a strict dance mom as a parent. And she's always moved around and controlled, never fully alone. And then, she didn't even like her homies Oliver and Noel before all this, but now she's stuck with these guys.
Fucking guys.
So Skitter's, she's showing she's engaged in the conversation enough that Sundancer continues saying that the hardest part of taking over her territory wasn't burning up people with her son. It was that she didn't have any friends to give her, support or whatever while she burned people with her son.
I would have really appreciated a pat on the back during all of that murder.
Yeah, exactly. So, then, at this point, the miasma's reaching Tattletale and Trickster, and Tattletale, she's not looking up at Skitter. She's got her back turned, and she's petting Bentley. She's comforting him. And as the other 2 are overtaken, Sundancer says, now she's alone. And Skitter, she'll go confront the 9, and she'll be left here all on her own to go crazy as she waits. Skitter then gives her the humans will endure speech. And Sundancer thinks she's being optimistic, and then Skitter corrects Sundancer to let her know that she's actually so pessimistic that even if it sounds like she's being optimistic, that just means you're not picking up what she's putting down. So, there's
something's different and you don't get it.
Yeah, exactly. There's an awkward pause. Then Skitter's like, well, best be hitting the old dusty trail. And Sundancer's just like, go. So Skitter is not all too reassured at the thought that Bonesaw won't make it quick, but she might have time to save them. So she's got that medium hope. Or they might be slowly torture murdered by the weapon. So, there's that. Well, it could be either.
It could go either way. Yeah.
So Skitter flies higher than the vapor that the miasma can go and sees the effect isn't spreading into the bay. And areas of high ground, the effect is either diminished or gone. So some people are fine, I guess. Spotting Legend lasers firing from a distance, Skitter goes in to scout with her bugs. She doesn't really know what's happening, but Legend is shooting beams at his teammates. You know, she can tell he's pulling his punches and only stunning them as he fights, but so they don't seem to have gone berserk or whatever, but it may be some sort of paranoia. And various heroes are fighting, Weld's around, and Skitter moves to try and approach Vista, and she calls out to Vista, but then Vista's like, stay back, and doesn't know who Skitter is, or who she's supposed to be fighting. She's breathing hard, she's all like, and she's, the filter on her gas mask is not filtering her constant internal rage, just as much as it's not filtering out the bioweapon. So she's basically flipping out. And Skitter realizes the effect worked on them, and she wants Vista, Skitter says she's there to help, but then Vista's doing her create pillar and drop it on people move at Skitter. And then
Can't be doing that.
The crash, well, you can't because the loud noises get Legend's attention. He's like, loud noises! Yep. And then once he's over there, he lasers both of them. It knocks Skitter onto the rooftop, and Vista just scoops her and grabs her with the rooftop and traps her.
Man, come on, guys.
Come on. And then now that she's on there and trapped, she's stuck at a level where the miasma's at. So, and she got hurt from the fall too. It specifically calls out how the fall hurt. More than the laser. Vista runs away. She's like, yeah, I'm gonna turn my back and run, and if you shoot at me, you're gonna regret it. And then Skitter tries to convince Legend to free her. He doesn't trust her, though, and he orders her to stay. And while this is happening, Skitter's trying to keep track of what's happening to them and what's happening in her own mind. And she starts to forget details about her life and people's faces and stuff. And she can still do math and remember words and whatever. But she's having some sort of brain problem that we'll learn later is called agnosia. And, it's like the Calculon show, but instead of amnesia. Agnosia. Anyway, where was I? She can't even remember what her teammates' costumes or powers are, so she's realizing Sundancer's fear has been wrought on all of them. They were all alone now. Unable to coordinate to fight against the Nine. The who? Which people? To fight who?
Uh-huh. It's all Sundancer's fault?
Sounds like maybe...
Shouldn't have been afraid.
Maybe Vic was right all along that Sundancer was a beta.
Oh, damn it. This is it.
She's so mean to Sundancer. She's just like, I just hate that she's such a beta. She literally says that shit. It's so funny.
You gotta be understanding.
Vic is crazy.
Sometimes.
And then after a while, Skitter's able to wriggle free out of the space warp roof, and then by the time she's out of the effect, she has time to, or by the time she's out of that, then the effect of the miasma has time to set in on her. And she doesn't have cell service, she doesn't know where to go, she's moving through some confusing scenes, she's not fully sure of who she's seeing or what's happening. She's like, is that bitch's dog or Crawler? She can't remember that Crawler got fragged. Forming swarm decoys for backup, someone notices her and calls out, Skitter! It's a blonde girl. Oh, thank goodness, we're saved. It's me, Tattletale. And Skitter's suspicious at first, I don't know. But she doesn't want to be like Legend and shoot her own teammate. She thought Legend was such a square. So she asks how Tattletale got here. On the dog! Skitter looks, but she can't find the creature from before. Skitter's aiming the gun at her. She says that her power let her work around this gas, and she's brought Gru here with her. So Skitter asks if this is amnesia, and then we're told it's actually agnosia. They have lost the access to their long-term memory, but they haven't lost the memories themselves. But their brains are being destroyed by self-replicating prions, like mad cow disease. And this lasts forever, and is incurable, and is terminal. Skitter is barely able to remember enough detail in the short-term memory, which she can access, but she gets the important information that they need to find Panacea who can fix this. So she says they're going to grab Gru and they'll make a plan, and Skitter hesitates. When she asks what's up, Skitter says, sorry, a little paranoid. So Skitter's worried about fighting among teammates, and then Tattletale says they need to find Amy, and they'll need Cherish for that. Skitter doesn't know who Cherish is, because, Skitter is not able to access short-term, or anything out of the short-term memory. And then, Cherish isn't Taylor's OTP like Amy, so, there's that too.
Yeah.
So that's why Skitter's like, we gotta find Panacea.
It's always been about Panacea.
Exactly. So Skitter vaguely remembers the story that she's getting fed about capturing people recently and losing someone at the same time. So Tattletale tells her Cherish is the one that they captured and confined. Skitter says cell phones aren't consistent right now, and someone asks if it's safe. The girl says, sure, and a man walks out and asks, this is Skitter? The girl nods and says, Skitter, this is Gru. Skitter's still not recognizing these people and keeps the gun pointed at them. She asks what it'll take for Skitter to trust them, and Skitter's not even sure at first. Then Skitter asks about a specific event, but we, the audience, know that Tattletale wasn't even there for that. Then Skitter realizes, I don't know how many people were there. All the details are fuzzy.
She doesn't even know enough to have anything proved.
Skitter doesn't know that I've changed the art. So, yeah, it will spawn into being. She tells Skitter that she's thrown off too, but she's just been using her power to uncover the info that she needs to keep moving. Making some moves to seem less threatening, she convinces Skitter to land and get off Atlas. Then, in a weird, off-putting scene that happens where the girl gets on her knees, and with her hands above her head, she shuffles on her knees up to Skitter and presses the barrel of the gun to her own head. So some weird creep behavior,
Yeah. Not ideal.
Not ideal. Skitter is given a very strong, I trust you, why don't you trust me? And Skitter says that her heart is saying to trust them actually isn't a good reason. It's not a good enough reason for her. And then the man says that they should just leave without her. Then tells Skitter to go somewhere safe. Afterward, though, he tempts her more, trying to say how bad the situation is going. Yeah, you'll have to be somewhere safe, because, if they keep getting to do what they're doing, and anything, the 9, vague statements.
Yep, those guys we don't like. The ones we don't like, oh man, don't want to be here for that.
Yep. And then he says how he's scared and suspicious too, but he trusts Tattletale. Skitter says that she can't even trust that even is Tattletale. And then he says, trust your heart, trust your heart. But Skitter can't decide what to do. Also, this is the time, in case Vela's here, to talk about the art, and I will talk about the art. This is crazy good. I think this is great.
Really good. Mm-hmm.
It's like, I've thought in the past, like, how would you visually represent stuff while the miasma is going on? But as a reveal that we already know, because, this is just the last part of the chapter. This is delightful.
Top tier.
Inarticulate with awe. Anyway.
Yeah, loving it.
I'm loving it, as McDonald's would say.
They would.
Also,
just as a quick moment, Taylor is the absolute, or Skitter is the wrong kind of person you want to say trust your heart to, because she literally never does that, ever, about anything.
God. So, he says, this isn't working, and the 9 will get away. Then he moves in and hugs Skitter. It's crazy. It's terrible. This seems to put Skitter in a social bind where she'll feel even worse by doubting him now, so is kind of trapped by social guilt. And then the girl says that they need to contact Cherish, so they gotta call Coil. Skitter doesn't know who that is. So she says, he's your boss. He's our boss, I mean. He'll be safe from the agnosia in his bunker. And then Skitter feels weird and bad and isn't sure why. And then she says, sooner we're fucking cured of this miasma, the better. And then we get the classic, hey, don't swear.
Bum, bum.
Ba, ba, ba.
You know, Tattletale's classic line, hey, don't swear.
Yeah, that's like one of the most famous Tattletale lines, actually.
I think it was the first one she had when she first met Taylor, if I recall. It was like, hey, kid, don't swear.
Yeah.
Also, do you want to be a spooky cape or whatever?
Do you want to dress like a bug? And then, you know, she didn't even need to ask that question because Taylor was already dressed like a bug when they met.
Yeah, it was already there.
Did you even need to ask? You had me from hello.
That's 14.8.
Yeah! I think this one's a really good one. It sets up, like, one of the weirdest, like, gimmicks, and, like, in a good way, gimmick, that I've read. Like, because it is, like, a really, like, weird scenario gimmick, but it's great, and it provides, such a great dramatic irony for us.
Mm-hmm.
For you, for me.
It turns every character into an unreliable narrator, which is very
except these bastards that we know are immune to it with our own, deductive skills. Although, the reason I even asked the audience participation question is because I remember listening to We've Got Worm, and Scott did not pick up on the hey, don't swear thing from, he didn't get that she was not Tattletale. He's like, huh, that's weird. The Tattletale wouldn't want her to swear, but okay. He didn't connect the dots.
Yeah, on my first read, I mean, I was, suspicious the entire time.
And then when the don't swear line, I was just like, oh my god.
You're like, God damn it.
I just thought they were all acting like freaks because of the agnosia.
The miasma.
Yeah, I had convinced myself. I forget what it's called, but it's that writing thing where you sort of subtly guide the audience to believe a thing, and then they will just, convince themselves of that thing over time without you ever really saying it. I feel like, a terrible callback here, but I feel like Homestuck does it really well a lot in Acts 4, 5.1, and 5.2. 5.2 especially, there's so many things that feel like they're being stated to the audience almost because, a character believes it, but the character believing it isn't a great basis in, it's not true because that character believes it. It's just what that idiot believes.
And Greg says, I guess I'll have to retract my statement that even the most thick-headed readers get it on the last line. Damn it, Scott.
Yeah. No, that's why I thought it was funny that because I was reading that earlier when you were writing it at the start of the stream, and I got distracted because I was thinking about the Scott thing, about how he totally... Because that's an anecdote he tells about the chapter. That it wasn't until partway into the next chapter until he realized, and then he had to go back and reread the end of the last chapter.
that
He's
rest.
like, ah. Anyway, this one's great. I don't know what to say. Loving it.
Yeah, I mean, I say ba loving it. Also, yeah, as you noted, I think this is a very cool shtick. It's a good gimmick to have friend and foe all sort of mixed up in this moment.
And I also
Keeps
feel
things really
like
interesting.
the panic of the audience in all the moments in the upcoming chapters, because she can remember things short term, but if she forgets to remember it, basically, then it's
Right.
gone. So, like, the panic of the audience at being like, okay, stay on task.
Yeah, it's very much like trying to guide a very, very drunk person, like, back home or whatever. It's just like, no, on track.
But, like, through a fight to the death.
Also that, yeah. Well, and you were kind of noting before, like, how in 14.7, like, yes, it was cool. There was a lot of fun action happening, but none of it felt so not as impacting as maybe it could have.
We
or
could
just given
tell
the
that it was
circumstances.
transitional action in our hearts.
For sure.
We were guided, unlike Taylor, by our hearts.
By our hearts, exactly. She's not capable of that. But in this chapter, it's very much like I think it's a much more interesting way to interject like a big wrench in the fight by turning everyone's mental faculties against them. Also knowing that there's characters like Legend who, if they really wanted to, could just decimate a bunch of people just around kind of dealing with the miasma also. It's nice to see like him sort of showing some kind of restraint while still not being totally aware. Just it's a whole different kind of obstacle we're seeing here.
I recently rewatched Harvey Birdman, Attorney at Law, and I just am having this feeling like Bonesaw here is men talking. And she totally takes everybody's minds.
Yeah. And even before the miasma had another method of doing that, just with the robo spiders. Kind of her jam. She doesn't like people having autonomy.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Messed up. Bonesaw.
It's pretty effed up, little girl.
Pretty effed up.
Get out of here.
Yeah, and maybe, hey, you don't swear.
Yeah. God. Jeez. So arc stuff.
Good chapter. Arc stuff.
These are like, I mean, again, just it really. I guess I would have no idea where the arc is going from reading a given chapter, but each chapter logically flows into the next, and it's a good connection from all the things that have been set up to like the actual events. I don't have a big thing to say about it, but it's just like, I don't know, good pacing. This arc has a good structure. Each thing leads to the next in a good way. It is, I guess, a bit of a drawn-out action scene in a way, but the scene where, I don't know, there are some conversations where, like, with Legend, where things slow down. So it's like those and like them bargaining with Taylor to go on without them. Like they slow down the action in a way that's good. It all works to have like not only highs and lows throughout the arc, but highs and lows throughout each chapter. I don't know. They're doing it up. Wildbow's bowing it.
Really, really shooting that bow.
I
think like as you're saying. Oh, go ahead.
I have like a dumb anecdote, but I recently learned because of Greg that the reason he's Wildbow and he's like got a pig icon is because in the old Final Fantasy games, the wild boar enemy was mistranslated to be Wildbow.
Oh.
So it's just a Final Fantasy reference.
What a little nerd. Okay.
What a rascal.
Nice Easter egg.
Wildbow. Now we know.
Wildbow.
And it makes me feel better that in the community game of all saying the name wrong that I picked Wildebeest, because that's like a bigger wild, and now it's like a wild animal, but it's not a boar. Anyway, Wildebeest, close enough.
Big.
It's
wild.
You'd fight one in a Final Fantasy game probably, in the right area.
Yeah,
More than a
kind of to what you were
Wildbow.
saying. I think I think these chapters, as far as the arc goes, like this is certainly the turning point where we realize, like, obviously the whole game with the nine is a little bit unprecedented for our current folks for the most part, but this shows a clear turning point in what kind of fight it's going to be. It's been a lot of cat and mouse up until this point, and
I don't know
now
though.
it's
This
like
still makes it even catter and mouser.
yeah, but with way more variables than simply the cat and the mice. It's
Yeah.
now yeah, like now the both the cat and the mouse are doped up on some kind of kooky narcotic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just interesting. It's cool. I like the change we're seeing and how messy it's all gotten, while
I
still being able to like follow along and keep it pretty linear.
I do remember the tone from my perspective. First time read felt very like desperate and hopeless at this point. Like I think that's
Mm,
successfully conveyed.
yeah, yeah. Because the characters are all dealing with, I mean, for the obvious reasons, but like constant unknowns, just shit they have no clue how to deal with.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And every scenario, even the most basic of like, hey, come over here, is like, I don't fucking know, man. Should I come over there?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Good, good stuff.
All right, so let's move on to the characters. So
Yeah.
you want to go through
Um,
your guys?
Yeah, I just had a couple small notes with Skitter. Kind of what I mentioned at the top is we're seeing her a lot more willing to go all out while simultaneously respecting her own limitations and choosing to fight smarter, not harder, in some instances. Um, Basically, being a lot more careful while taking calculated risks, and this is a lot more geared towards 14.7. And she kind of we see she's still at this point struggling with her identity as a villain and how she interprets her heroic actions and all that stuff.
I feel like when
Um,
he's under the agnosia, it kind of, in my opinion, uh, shows like that he really is like a good hero because like he
are we
can't
talking
tell
Legend?
Legend in 14.8 because like he can't tell who anybody is and he thinks everybody's his enemy, but he
Right.
like doesn't like hurt any of them that much, and
Mm-hmm.
he doesn't just like he could blast all of them instantly, and he doesn't like have that under the surface. He's like a good guy who doesn't want to like hurt civilians.
Yeah. Yeah, like, and even kind of prior to the agnosia, he's doing a good job at like employing specific tactics amidst what appears to be total chaos. Like while
Well,
he's
because I mean, there could
oh,
be
go
like
ahead.
an impulse to have it be like The Boys or something, where it's like he's evil and he's killing all the civilians, and under the surface, he's actually just a totally unrelatable guy.
Yep.
Like there's that you could do, but it's like he kills the people with the robo frames because like what the fuck else is he gonna do from his own perspective, you know? Um,
Yeah, it's clearly not a situation where he can like one by one go in and save anybody. And upon learning what they're dealing with, he's like, "Oh shit. Well, that's a non-starter anyway."
Yeah, and then in this situation, like where he doesn't know all the information, he's like not willing to hurt people to a big degree. So
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know. I
It's
just
good.
think it's good. I think he's a really a Legend's a character that I think is underrated.
You know what? I'm inclined to agree.
Yeah.
I didn't end up filling anything out for Gru, but just kind of again what I was mentioning before. He's he's still dealing with the aftermath of his second trigger and all that, and
He's pretty
he
present
seems
in
in
these fights though.
yes, like he seems like he's in a weird headspace, but definitely like keeping up with the ongoing stuff, and obviously like given his dealings with the nine, he's I think he's trying to encourage them to be a little bit more conservative in their approach, maybe a little more
Mhm.
cautious.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, we don't get a ton of big Gru moments aside from a little bit in 14.7.
Oh, and Greg has
Uh,
shared the proof of the origins of the wild bow, and we can share this into the Discord or
the show
something. But
notes.
it's on uh Arc 21's interlude in a comment by Wildbow. Final Fantasy Tactics monster erroneously called Wild Bow as opposed to Wild Boar. So there we
It's a good
go.
one. Had some notes on the Siberian, just because like we really continue to see the sheer powerhouse that is the Siberian and how untouchable they seem in a lot of ways. Just just keeps going. Also, able to carry out a plan while going toe to toe with legends. Which Taylor was kind of real time analyzing that whole fight as like a battle of attrition, and that clearly shows that both parties certainly had an underlying scheme about it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Schemes.
schemes. And also we of course get the reveal of the probable master being a scholar, which is just an interesting lore drop.
Yeah, and it's like a specific person that Legend knows. So,
Mm-hmm. So
um,
clearly, like, and,
mhm.
and Taylor kind of asks, like, "Oh, is it some cape or some hero or whatever?" And he's like, "No, it's a scholar." And yeah, you're kind of like, "That's an interesting connection for Legend too." You wonder, like, why he would be aware of that kind of person.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then, so I think didn't write all the characters I wanted to talk about. Because I did want to talk about Trickster,
yeah,
momentarily. Trickster be, upset this whole time. He is, I see it more on this read, but he, like really from the start of arc 14 is like a downhill trajectory for how he interacts with the Undersiders, and it only ever gets worse, I feel like. They don't like patch up their
Hmm.
relationship later.
Yeah. I guess you're right. It does feel kind of stilted after that.
Yeah. And then who else? We don't really see anything from Ballistic. Sundancer, in the words of
Yeah,
Victoria Duff, beta.
beta, super beta. I mean, her power is effective, does good stuff, but total beta.
Total beta. Um
Also, one of those people where you can tell that's like you're so capable, and if you would stop getting in your own fucking way, you could do something.
yeah, yeah. Um Yeah, Sundancer's power is just so powerful. It's like crazy, and she is afraid of everything.
Yep.
She's but it doesn't help that she's got like a classic stand power thing where um your normal body is totally normal and is something like fully vulnerable and whatever.
Mm.
And, that's not amazing. Um
Yeah, having just like the ability to create a weapon or however you want to interpret it, but having no defensive tactic with that, I could see that being a bummer.
yeah. Um
I mean,
Rachel.
we got.
Oh,
Oh yeah, go ahead.
sorry.
What do you got for Rachel?
Cuz Crawler. Oh, you know what? We should talk about Crawler's character cuz this is the last moment he'll get in the sun or in the clouds. Uh
Ah,
he just loves death. He loves pain, and he got bombed, and he was there for it. It
yeah,
didn't
yeah.
work out for him in the
Uh,
end, but
No, no. I've been we were talking about this. I've been watching a lot of One Piece again. I'm rewatching that whole show, and there's a character named Kaido in the newer stuff who is just the kind of like so powerful that they kind of want to die or at least have like a worthy opponent sort of situation. And I very much get a similar energy from Crawler, where it's just like, yeah, fuck me up, please, fuck me up, give me someone that can fuck me up. um, and he do get fucked up pretty pretty dang good.
Yeah, yeah. Rachel is still upset whenever she's reminded that she was tricked by the Siberian and the Siberian's creator.
Yeah, yeah. Rachel's always a ball of nerves and anger, and this is a classic that.
Mm-hmm. Um, then Bonesaw. I pulled out this line from 14.8. She nodded, then smiled wide. There's hope, right? Because it's like a Slaughterhouse 9 thing to always set up hope for people before like killing them or whatever.
Right. Yeah, and you're just like, man, you kind of just know what. She's like, there better be, because otherwise this whole thing's fun.
Yeah, yeah.
Also, she's just notoriously creepy. I mean, Bonesaw repeatedly is one of my, yeah, it would be the most fearful to encounter.
Yeah, yeah. And then there is Jack, who, um, he acts like a real creep, and he's hugging up on Taylor.
Yeah, being gross. He's just a, I don't know.
Get
I
out
can
of here,
see why he's
Jack.
powerful and charismatic or whatever, but he just seems skeevy, completely skeevy.
He uses the power of skeeviness to defeat all enemies.
It's this, yep,
Because they're like,
yep.
oh, I don't want to be near him. Have
Get
you?
slashed with
Oh.
skeeve. Ooh, with
Yeah.
that goatee thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. You
Um,
know what? I would have long hair and have little knives that are hanging down from braids, and then I'd swoop my head back and forth, and I'd be
oh,
swinging
see, that'd be good.
swinging
Yeah,
knives all over the place.
you're gonna go to a couple metal shows
Yeah,
beforehand so you can
that's
practice your windmills.
yeah. Well, that's my one of my ultimate techniques to fight a crowd is the windmill, and then I just take them all out.
I'm here for it. Yeah, yeah,
So
I'm here for it. Any other characters we missed that we want to touch on?
probably, um, Regent makes that glass dome, and it's pretty funny.
Oh,
Um,
pretty good.
no, I'm good.
Cool. All right. Great. Uh, powers, knowledge, and world building.
So the first time I read the story, I remembered that like Tattletale, or I remember that
That
Tattletale,
like Tattletale.
comma I should have put so I could read my own sentence. I did not initially believe that Crawler was really like Dunzo.
Like, you mean like out at the end of that fight, or just like that
They
he's
tell you
done?
he's dead, and then you're like supposed to believe them, and it's like I will believe it when I see it, and then it is true.
Yeah, yeah. I would have liked to hear it out of the mouth of someone who didn't have agnosia. Uh,
Agnosia.
agnosia.
No, we do
Because
hear it
yeah.
from someone who doesn't have agnosia. Legend tells
Oh, right.
her that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But I
Because
agree with you.
there's like an elliptical edit between the chapters. I think like Legend doesn't he tell her like some more stuff before she leaves?
Yeah, when they're up, when they're floating above the battle, that's when he says, Crawler and fucking, why can't I think of him? Mannequin were caught in that blast.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Other powers. I mean, I don't know. It kind of shows like, and Tattletale touches on this too in 14.7 regarding like a character like Bonesaw, where Bonesaw is like a medical tinker, but definitely still a tinker. So people kind of assume whatever it's going to be is something spooky and surgical, but also she's making robots. She could very easily be hacking things. Some of the powers that are given labels or what have you might be a lot more complex than is led to believe.
Mm-hmm. Or like she could probably find weird solutions to similar problems. Like the mechanical spiders still have like meat brains in them because
Mm-hmm.
like I don't know if they talk about that in this portion of the story, but it's so that she can work on them easier.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
So her power is more applicable, basically.
to like biology, but she's
Yeah.
still able to like do that in tandem with a robotic spider.
Mm.
And then I had pointed out that this when I read it this time, I was like, Tattletale or Sundancer should have curled up into a ball and then swapped with Atlas, and then it would have been even faster, because you would have got Atlas and Skitter at the same time.
See, would have made so much more sense.
Why didn't they curl up in a ball and switch with a big bug?
Why was their first thought, hey, let me curl up into a ball
They
real
should have
quick
seen
so
that
we can
bug
do
and
this?
thought, you know what's a different bug is a roly-poly. And then they curl up for like a
Oh.
roly-poly, and then they switch for bug.
See, yeah, I don't know why they're not really thinking
Now you're
about roly
thinking with
polies
powers.
more. Yeah. Now you're thinking with polies.
Um, do you have any more things to talk
Hmm.
about for this section? I feel like we learn a lot of powersy things these chapters, but we mostly just talked about them as they happened.
Yeah. I mean, the only other kinds of things. I think what just continues to sort of impress me about a lot of the powers, and obviously it's in the hands of a particularly powerful ape in this case, but again, back to like Legend's fine control of his lasers and stuff like that. I think it's I think it's a lot more interesting how they show some of these powers develop. Whereas, like, yeah, if Legend could just like fly and blast lasers, like that's fine, but pretty basic. But having
Like,
the
there's a
ability to
reason Legends like top tier and Purity's just like fine. Purity can just
right.
fire a beam from herself. Legend can like god tier steer around a maze and hit his target.
Yeah, exactly.
And like he's untouchable. Like Purity's just got a normal body, but when he gets hit, he gets like fractured into a light beam and like then is healed by like his breaker state. It's like his
Hmm.
power is fucking insane.
Yeah, absolutely insane. Um, but yeah, overall, I mean, I think I don't know if it's like necessarily in this category, but like it's interesting to see that the PRT is like utilizing Bakuda's weaponry. Um, like it makes sense if you're gonna go around confiscating this stuff, you'll save it for a rainy day. But also that they were dropping those things on a battlefield which did have some friendly combatants on it. They were kind of like, "Fuck it, let's do this thing."
Yeah, but that was always the plan.
Yeah,
So,
typical PRT.
drop the bombs. Um,
Uh, yeah, I think that's probably the only major notes I had.
there's no bonus for this week. Um, well, actually, we could do, what is your 3 favorite capes up to this point in the story? Go.
Oh,
What are you thinking?
Three favorite capes at this point in the story. Oh, that's tough.
On first read, Genesis. I still think Genesis is awesome, but I was very captivated by Genesis's power on the first
Yeah.
read.
Yeah, Genesis is overall fine, but definitely the power. I think, you know, like you noted, Trickster stuff goes downhill, but I really like Trickster. Of course, your classic TT is good, but would I call her favorite like cape? I don't know. Probably would say TT's up there.
I think
Um,
for me, Skitter was like hands down in that like you know the first reader. It's just you love her.
yeah,
Like I know
I'm
some
trying to
people
not
bounce off
pick
her, but
Skitter. Yeah.
like I'm let's say like slightly dark horse picks. So not Skitter, not Tattletale. So
Okay.
Genesis. I really liked. I thought Long's such a good bad guy. Lungs, like the fact that he seemingly has no upper limit. We know he gets like more dangerous than we've seen him.
Yep.
And he was already pretty fucking dangerous.
Yeah, agreed with that.
And
Obviously, Uber and late.
it's uber and late. Jeez.
Yeah, my guys.
Oh, I really liked Strider as well. The mass teleporting power.
Oh right. Forgot all about Strider.
So that's my answers are Lung, Strider, and who did I say?
Lung, Strider, and
Genesis. Lung, Strider, and
Yeah.
Genesis.
I think I'll have to go. Shit, it's so tough. I mean, okay, so we've got our Trickster. I'm keeping Trickster in my lineup.
You're keeping Trickster.
I'm gonna actually say, maybe problematic here. Put Arms Master is up there.
Well, no, he is cool. That when he fights Leviathan, I almost put him on the list because of when he fights Leviathan, because that's already happened.
I think he's a bad guy, but he's like an impressive Kate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Arms Man, pretty cool.
Arms Man, Trickster, and for my final pick, I'm going Imp.
Oh, boom. Okay.
Love me some Imp.
Then we got our answers. I'm gonna memorialize mine real quick. Genie, sis. Competing for space. Lung and who had I just said? Strider. Hell yeah. Strider's gonna go in the middle, so that the names
these are ranked
lengthwise. Well, this way the length is less and less as I go down the list. So for you, it would be Trickster, Arms Man, Imp.
Yep. Or if I use
Arms Master, it would be at the start.
But we're not gonna do that. There you have it.
There we go. All right, and then audience participation. When did you realize it was not really Tattletale talking to Skitter on your first read? Greg says, honestly, I didn't think about it until the very last line of the chapter, at which point I think even the most thick-headed readers figured it out. To which he later recanted this account and said, I guess I'll have to retract my statement that even the most thick-headed readers get it on the last line. Damn it, Scott. And then 2 + 4 × 5 said, I also figured it out at the last line of the chapter, but only because I'd previously seen this Bonesaw fan art, and it's the classic remember kids swearing is bad, with Bonesaw shushing the audience. And then we have Vale saying, same here, though I do catch it earlier on rereads. I would hope so.
With the benefit of hindsight.
Vic says, I think I remember knowing pretty quickly because Jack/Gru acts super sus, and the fact that he didn't have darkness radiating from him. Plus, Bonesaw talks way more technically than Tattletale ever does. She usually knows her audience.
Good point. And I also didn't clock that fake Gru was not emanating darkness. Didn't really occur to me.
Yeah.
Good catch.
Well, so what was I going to say? My answer is for this, that on my first read, I don't think I knew until the swearing is bad or whatever. The don't swear.
Yeah, for myself, it was the same realization because like throughout,
I just thought they were acting like freaks because of the agnosia.
Yeah, I think it does a good job.
But it doesn't even make sense, like if you think about it, because like why would Tattletale be with Gru? They weren't on the same roof.
Yeah, I think they do a good job at just using.
Like if they had said Tattletale and Trickster, it like literally would have made more sense.
Huh.
But
Yeah,
those characters didn't know who was where.
Right. It was effective. It was effective and weird. But
So yeah, like
maybe
the
not
chapter
best.
gives you the tools you need to figure it out.
Yep.
But I didn't figure it out
was.
till the last
No.
line.
Same.
And then for the question for the next two chapters, well, I don't know. I didn't come up with one. This is the ones where they confront at Arcadia, you know?
Right.
And there's a lot going on. There's a lot of crazy stuff. Do you have any ideas?
Thinking here.
The whole next two chapters, she's got explosive agnosia.
Yeah, it's got to be something going on with the agnosia, right? Like, maybe something like,
How freaked out are you by the idea of agnosia?
How freaked out are you by the idea of agnosia? Or, like, what would you try to do to overcome an agnosia? Like, I don't know. Maybe that's a little too vague. Like, I'm thinking kind of more in terms of, like, what information could you use to root yourself with? But that's a little vague. I don't know. That's a tough one.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Well, I guess maybe the question will have to be thought of later, and we'll pretend like I thought of it beforehand later.
Yes, we'll share a good question later in the chat.
Maybe.
If
we remember.
We'll see.
I'm gonna start up the outro music for a second and read the links, and then we'll give it a good, quick cut short.
All right.
So that will be starting now. Let's look at this. We got the music used in this episode, as it has been for a while, is Infestation by ScarlettXOX. Found at twitch.tv/Scarlett_Rogue. The Discord server link can be found in the stream description as well as the channel description. The author of the work being discussed can be supported on Patreon at patreon.com/Wildbow. The full text of the work is available for free online at parahumans.wordpress.com. There's also a fan-made audiobook of the entire work at audioworm.rain-online.org. So, yeah, there's the things. Any last words for the audience?
Thanks for having me. Hope everyone has a lovely day, and stay wormy out there.
Stay wormy. Greg says so long, and so do I. So long.